and welcome. My name is Roberta Watson, and on behalf of Jefferson's Alumni Office, I'd like to thank you for joining us for tonight's webinar, Professional Networking 101. We will be hearing from our alumna and a great career coach, Jen Blaga. She'll be sharing some of her tips for how we can network like pros. Following her presentation, we'll move into an audience Q&A. So I encourage you to submit those throughout the presentation using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Now, before Jen gets us started, just a quick intro into a little bit about her. She graduated from Jefferson with a degree in marketing, went back when it was the textile school, and went on to earn her law degree. She's since had a variety of different positions in professional development and recruiting and owns her own company, Your Purple Crayon, in the Cleveland, Ohio area. She now helps her clients become their best professional selves, and we're so excited to have her here to give us some really great tips. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jen. Jen, thanks so much for joining us. Go ahead and take it away.
Thanks so much, Roberta. I appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for being here. Step one is showing up. So I think that you are already ahead of the game. As Roberta mentioned, I am an alum, 91 grad. I went on to law school with the intention of being a tax lawyer, and then pivoted once again and had a really nice 26-year career in the legal recruiting and professional development community in Northeast Ohio. Before I started my business 7 months into the pandemic, Your Purple Crayon, which the premise of which is based, for those of you who remember the book Harold and the Purple Crayon, about a 4-year-old boy who drew using his crayon, drew through obstacles, adventures, and essentially paths that weren't there for him previously with his purple crayon. My model is then everybody has their own individual styles, comfort zones, etc., about how to create that path. So I do want to talk to you today about several buckets of information. But before we get to the agenda, I do want to mention I'm going to fold in some of the questions that were submitted ahead of time to the best of my ability throughout the conversation, throughout the slides. One of the first questions that came up was, is the term networking still used? Is there a new term? And frankly, although I don't necessarily pride myself on keeping up with all of the new terms that are going on, I don't believe there is a new term, but I would suggest to you that there's a new definition. And it's one that I've had actually for a very long time. My career path is a true testament to how networking works. And in the early part of my career, for those of you who are young parents out there, I had young children, and then I was a single mom, and I was very, very protective of my time, and I was running around like crazy. So I had to pick and choose and be very selective about the networking forums that I chose to participate in. So I have had the definition, and I think more and more people have had a broader definition of what networking really means. It's gone well beyond now the mix and mingle happy hour. And there are a variety of situations, communities, virtual and in person, that you can participate in without it taking a tremendous toll on the time we have at home, for school, and for work. So today, in no particular order, we're going to talk a little bit about the self-reflection you need to be doing as you're either preparing to head out into the job world, whether you're in the middle of your career or whether you're kind of on the tail end of your career and looking to pivot at some way. Some of the food for thought that I have for you. Defining the networks where you're going to get, as I mentioned, the biggest bang for your time and your energy buck. Building your reputation, being aware of what that is and how you want it to look like. And then talking a bit about the right rooms, the right tools, and the perseverance required to get through all of this. So networking is a very large bucket of things that you can choose from that tailor and work for your comfort zone, your styles, and your time. So let's talk self-reflection. One of the questions that came in was, what advice do I have for people who are pivoting in their career, starting from scratch during the pandemic, mid-career, end of career, or later in your career? And frankly, I don't actually view those stages, somebody pivoting, much different than those who are just starting out using networking for the first, second, or third time to their advantage. The difference, I think, primarily is that those of you who have already been working and have either lost your job through furloughs, whatever the pandemic has brought you, or working from home has made you rethink what you're looking for in your job or your career path, you are now armed with skills and knowledge and a network that you may not be leveraging that you can build upon. I'm a walking example. I started my career again 7 months into the pandemic, and I leaned on a network, some that was very, I hadn't talked to some of these people in a long time, and I leaned on them and took a shot at reaching out. So I do think that no matter whether you're starting from true scratch at the beginning as a student, coming up on graduation, entry level, or in the middle of your career, some of these things are going to apply across the board. So in terms of self-reflection, what you want, what you need, look back on what you've accomplished. High school, college, graduate school, in your career. What do you still want to accomplish? What are the lessons that you've learned? What skills do you need to get to where you want to go, and the people and groups that you need to connect with in order to get the information that you need to arm yourself with? What feedback or info do you need to pave the path that you're looking to develop? My suggestion, no matter if you're starting out or mid or more seasoned professional, look at job descriptions and profiles and create a summary that describes you, because ultimately that summary is going to serve you well on a LinkedIn profile, at the top of your resume as you become more seasoned in your career. But look at those job descriptions, look at those profiles, and come up with a written summary of something that you're comfortable with. So once you know what you want, you did that self-reflection, you're looking back, looking ahead, talking to people. Now, how do we get what you want? And this bucket is, enormous, filled with relationships, your reputation, your current networks, the networks you want to be a part of, and your story. And no matter what industry, profession, role that you go into, it's all about relationships, right? Everyone, no matter whether you're looking to land a job, your first time, third time, 10th time, get into leadership roles or promote yourself, advance yourself within your organization, or just continue to move through your career in a way where you have relationships benefiting you. Everything is about relationships. Paying attention to those around you, building them in a meaningful way, being thoughtful in your follow-up and your reach out. And along with relationships goes your reputation, right? Because you have a reputation, whether or not you're aware of it, and you want to build on that. And if you don't have a reputation that you're aware of, you can work on creating one and creating a new one, and then maintaining that reputation. But the goal with the relationships and the reputation is you want people to get an impression of you, right? That old saying, you never get a chance to make a first impression. You don't get a second chance to do that. But the first impression is not the last chance to make a good impression, right? It's all about your reputation. What do you want to leave people with so that they're still telling your story for you when you leave them? So what relationship are you looking for? Or reputation, excuse me. So how to grow it? You can have a stronger one, right? Right now, take an inventory. Look at the people that are in your networks, in your world, your social media activity, your alumni community. These are all things that go into making up who you are, the impression you make on people, and what you leave people with so that they can continue to help you and advance the ball for you. Who do you know? We all have our social circles. I'm not suggesting that we all don't need those friends who remind us to let our hair down and have some fun, but professionally, we do want to hang out with people who challenge us, right? Who have our tough love, who are going to be the ones when we walk into a room of people we don't know, encourage us to go and introduce ourselves. We want people who bring out the better in us. And those are the folks you want to hang out professionally, and they're around you at school, be it your classmates, the folks that you graduated with, your career services and alumni, the people that you work with, and those in your social circles. So let's think about your network, right? For those of you students who are still in college, look back at the high schools you went to. If you went to a private high school, a lot of those have very tight alumni networks who help each other tremendously. Did you go on to grad school? Have you done programs throughout? Who are the people that you've interacted with in those jobs you've held? All along the way, when I was a career coach for students, the goal is to remember you want to leave that job with a reference, right? Somebody who will talk very well about you. Well, that doesn't stop. So think about the people you've interacted with, your supervisors, your peers, your direct reports, people have reported right to you. What extracurriculars have you participated in school or professionally? Sports programs, clubs, volunteering. Think about the people you've met and how you've interacted with them. And maybe are they in a position of decision making? Just starting to think. And of course, your social circles, the people you hang out with, your family, the people you hang with out in their family. Everyone has the possibility to be able to share your story with people that they know and help you. So let's make a list. I'm all about the list. Keeping track of the people you know, the people you want to know, and how do we get busy reaching out to those people? One of the questions that had come in was how to reach out to essentially a cold network, right? A cold call in terms of networking. LinkedIn is a huge resource for this if you don't know people, but you have people that you want to meet or people you think would be important for you to connect with. Look at their LinkedIn profile and see if there's an overlap in your connections. Do you have a mutual connection or multiple mutual connections who'd be willing to make an introduction for you? Is there an overlap in the schools that you went to or the places that you've worked or any kind of background where that could be a conversation starter? And then you want to draft an email or a message on LinkedIn and looking to connect. I would highly recommend that you not send cold connection requests on LinkedIn. You don't want anyone wondering how they know you, do they know you, why you want to connect with them. That's an excuse, the connection. They give you the opportunity to connect with a message and tell that person what you're looking for. Another question was about reconnecting with those you've lost touch with. When I started my business, I reached out to people I haven't talked to in the 20 plus years since I've been in law school, because I needed clients and referral sources to remember who I was, what I did, and what I was looking to achieve. And what the key is, I think, is acknowledging that time lapse, right? It's been a long time since we connected. I hope life has been treating you well. And I hope you don't mind me reaching out. And mention there's a job opportunity at your company, or you're in a role, or you know somebody who's in a role that I'm interested in and would love to pick your brain on how exactly you got there. But all social media, the virtual world has made this kind of reach out the primary way we're connecting with each other, frankly, now. So set up those video calls, set up a phone call. If you're open to meeting in person, set up a coffee meeting. These are how people are connecting, but make those lists, do your homework, look at who you already know, who you want to know, and see if there's mutual connections there, or draft an email about reaching out to people that you haven't reached out to in a long time. You have nothing to lose. A quick aside, because this was a very big deal when I worked with students, and frankly, going back to the 2000s, when you were able to start Googling somebody, this is something I used. I used those forums to research candidates in the hiring process. And then once we hired somebody, the percentages are incredibly high. Employers do look. So just as an aside, since we are all on social media more now than probably ever, clean up your social media presence. Make sure your photos are clean, turn on your privacies. There's no reason an employer has to actually drill down into your Facebook page. So I would make that private only to your friends. But be aware that employers, recruiters are using them. I use it every single day still in the recruiting part of my business. And when I coach a client and want to get to know them, I always recommend you Google yourself, because you may be surprised at what's out there and you just want to be aware of it before somebody comes to you asking you about something that's out there. Your TJU community. Because I've been in career services before on a couple of occasions in my on my career path, I'm particularly sensitive to how helpful the career services and the alumni associations can be. My experience as a career services professional was, if a student took the time to come in and introduce themselves, talk to me about their family, their background, their credentials, what they want to do, how they built their resume, the things that they're interested in. And they continued to come in and talk to me regularly. I was able then to talk about those people when I was on employer visits, or when I was out networking, or I was in my social circles with people who happened to be decision makers, and I could talk about them. The students who didn't take that time, I of course could not talk about them. So I can promise you that career services and alumni associations do not get the credit that they deserve. They are very hardworking. They are talking about you when they know you. So take the time. They really, really can help. In addition, get involved in your TJ, whether you're a current student or an alum. The current students, join the clubs and get involved. You don't want a club on your resume just for the sake of having the name of the club, because inevitably a prospective employer is going to ask you what your involvement was, what your contribution was. And unless you've played an active role, that club probably shouldn't be on your resume. When the school invites speakers to come, and you now all have a new connection in me, alums, there's programs for you as well. When there's guest speakers, be the person who goes and introduces yourself, or the person who sends a note afterwards. Thanks so much for coming to speak with us. It was great. I would love to connect with you. Would you have some time for a video chat? Would love to learn how you got involved in what you're doing. But if you're going to take the time and the energy to attend anything, virtually or in person, particularly in person, introduce yourself to somebody. Get a business card from that person. It's fine handing out business cards, but you need to get the business cards and then follow up. But take that time. Try to get a little bit out of your comfort zone. And also, part of getting involved, being visible, writing blogs, social media posts within, the appropriate sensitivity of certain subjects, but you want to be present. You want to be engaged. You want to be visible. And that also includes volunteering in your community, which many, schools, alumni organizations have opportunities you can participate in that way. A quick plug for the Jefferson Alumni Network. This is an opportunity for you to, This is an opportunity for you to get your profile out there in front of alums, and then to search for alums who could help you or could give you information. So they make this very easy. These systems do work. I am on alumni systems for both for my undergrad, but for formerly textile, and for my law school. They do work, and inevitably you'll end up paying it forward. You connect with others who can help you, and you will continue to do it. Great resource. Highly recommend it. Going back quickly to networking in the civic arena, there is a tremendous benefit for getting involved, getting traction when you're involved on the civic side, whether it be volunteering, whether it be serving on a board, speaking, mentoring. All of those things present opportunities that will build your resume, to give you the opportunity to shine, possibly in leadership roles. And it will introduce you to a very broad, diverse group of people who, again, can be connections, who are additional people that you can tell your story to, who will then talk about you to others once they've met you, if you made that impression. Great opportunity. So if you can get involved, again, I realize time is precious. So pick things you're passionate about, right? It will help. And again, a really big resume builder there. Skill set, they want to see you're participating, spending that time in any way that you can. LinkedIn has become a lifesaver for many of us. I always have used LinkedIn as a recruiter. It was a huge resource for me. And now it's the way we're staying in touch with each other. Particularly in the heart of the pandemic, it was how we were meeting with each other, how we were getting to know with each other. So more and more people were on it who may not have otherwise been. So take a minute and make that profile the best it can be. Even if you're a student and your resume is just starting to build, but particularly if you're a senior or a recent grad or an alum, take a minute and get a professional photo. You don't have to spend any money. Just make sure the photo looks professional. Have someone take it. The summary I talked about at the very beginning, looking at profiles of jobs you're interested in, thinking about your qualifications, write that bio for the about section and use it on your resume, use it here. It will become part of your elevator pitch, part of your story. But you want it to capture so that folks go looking for candidates as a recruiter, for speakers, for content, for people who are involved in organization. You want those words to be things that they're searching for, right? So all of the key pieces of things you're interested in, that you're involved in, your skills, etc. And stay on top of it. First of all, check your privacy settings, make sure they are set according to how you want your network to be able to see you, your updates, etc. And connect and follow. Connecting with people over LinkedIn is a great opportunity to send that thank you for coming to and speaking to our group, or it was great to meet you at last week's happy hour. Make it timely. It's an opportunity to say, I hope our paths cross again, or to follow up with it. Would you happen to have any time next week? I'd love to continue the conversation that we had. Staying visible virtually now is really, really important. So you want to follow those companies. You want to comment and like and share, again, all appropriately. Another question that had come in from one of you was about reaching out to recruiters on LinkedIn about positions that you've applied for, internships or otherwise. Whenever possible, you want to apply through the company website. So if you see a posting on LinkedIn, go to the company website and apply through that portal. It's the most direct way to ensure your application got there and that a recruiter paid attention to it. Unfortunately, recruiters generally don't often have the time, or say they don't have the time to respond to every single applicant. So you may end up just out there waiting, right? But if you apply through the company website, you have a better opportunity to follow up with a human versus LinkedIn that, frankly, I have found has algorithms set up in the system that sometimes the system will identify you as not a fit and will put you in a bucket that the recruiter can't see without deliberately going in looking at not a fit. So to the extent possible, use LinkedIn as the source of information and then go to the company website to apply. But unfortunately, the follow-up through LinkedIn will often lead to no response because it's just it's an added step for a recruiter to have to take. I'm not making excuses, but that's in fact what is happening. Another question that was asked was, you're waiting to hear back from people. Again, similar issue. Follow-up is just fine if you have the emails or a message through LinkedIn to send to the hiring manager. If you have a screen interview, be it phone, in person, wait, a week to 10 days and send a follow-up, just reiterating your interest, seeing if there's an update on the hiring status of the position. In the event you don't get another response, wait another week. All in, I would not follow up more than 2, maximum 3 times over a 4 to 6 week period. Recruiting is a long, arduous process. It's like herding cats. And unfortunately, a lot of candidates fall through the cracks who weren't being considered or who didn't go further into the process. And unfortunately, the recruiters often don't get to communicate with those folks. So I apologize on behalf of all the recruiters. So now you're going to go, right? Now you've thought about the relationships you have, the impressions you want to make, the reputation you want to have, the networks, the rooms. So now we're going to go tell your story. Your story. Practice it, believe it, watch the reaction to it, and refresh, refine, repeat. You want to be able to talk quickly and succinctly and smoothly about what your story is. You know, I had a long career in legal recruiting and professional development. And in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, started my company that hopefully allows my clients to develop in their careers, being a more improved version of who they are, advance in their careers, transition in their careers, generate business in their careers. I coach them, provide them with the tools and the support to get to where they want to go. That's my story. I tell that story as often as I can. My business depends on it. You getting your first job, you getting that next job, you connecting with the decision makers and telling as many people as possible what your story is really important. So you have to believe it and you have to make it your own. A question that came in was two questions actually that are closely related. One was, how do you network among the different generations that are in a room, right? You walk in and you've got the entry level accountant and you have the CFO type of thing. And frankly, walking up to anybody in a room where you know and having meaningful conversation. My theory is you just need to know your audience, right? You want to have icebreakers. You want to have conversation starters. Look at name tags. The generations are, again, knowing your audience. If you're talking to somebody who appears to be in the early stages of their career, they may very well have a leadership role. So you don't want to adjust how you're talking to them. You just want to kind of get a sense of where they are in that path. And somebody with a title of a C-suite title as CFO, it's gauging that. But again, using that as an opportunity to talk about how they got there, what brings them to this particular networking room. I can't guarantee, of course, that you're going to end up with a meaningful conversation when you walk into a group. Some of those conversations go bust very quickly and you find yourself heading to the bar for another drink. But when you walk into a room and you walk into a group of people who are already in a conversation, you need to have the intention of driving the conversation. Think of questions, go in, introduce yourself, insert yourself. And then because you've interrupted that or because you've walked up, ask where they work, what brings them here. So again, networking among generations, walking up to someone, trying to have a meaningful conversation, try to drive the conversation and know your audience. I'm a list maker. I'm a spreadsheet person. When my clients are trying to track their progress, track their success, follow up meaningfully and timely with their connections, I recommend a spreadsheet. When you go to an event, you can have a tab for that event. You can have, TJU alum connections. You can have social connections. Keeping track of them and how to reach those people and the last time that you touched them, as we say in the sales world, keeping track of all of that is really important because you want to stay on top of the last time you did and not let too much time go by before you touch base again. It will remind you. You can put ticklers on your calendar. And you can track industries and companies. If you are starting a job search for the first time or you're looking to shift gears and pivot, write down the company names or the industries and start to do some homework. There are plenty of resources out there now where you can get your homework done and keep track of they have a new CEO, or they just had a new hiring manager, or this job was posted, and keep track of those things so you can hold yourself accountable. Networking is really hard work, just like job searching. You have to persevere through it. You have to be intentional. You have to be deliberate about it. It does work. I promise you. My career path, if you look at my profile, and I moved to Cleveland 30 years ago, knowing only the person, my significant other. I had to build the network from scratch, both social and professional. Each of the jobs that I have secured along the way, going back to the beginning, except for the very first one where I applied to a newspaper ad, were opportunities that were presented to me because of somebody who knew me, knew my story, and knew what I was looking to do. And as I mentioned, I was busy as a single young mom running around, taking care of my kids while having a career. If you are career minded and want to remain career minded, you need to put this work in. And there really are ways where you don't have to sacrifice the time that you have to spend at home or at school or at work. But it is hard work. So if you took nothing away from all of this, all of you showed up here, that you're already doing the right things. You're listening to other people. You're connecting with others, beyond your immediate network, to hear what they have to say, to get an introduction to them. These are true for my students. These are true for you looking for your first job. And these are true for those of you looking to pivot. You have to be visible in person as much as you possibly can, but definitely virtually. Be engaging, be memorable, leave an impression, and say thank you every time, and do it your way, right? You want to be authentic. I know that word is horribly overused now, but you want to show people what you're made of. You want to show them that you're serious, and you want to show them that you are going to follow up, and you're going to stay in front of them, and you're going to appreciate the things that you did, because then in turn, hopefully, all of you will pay it forward, right? You'll do it for the next person. You'll do it for the next alum. This is how to reach me. I am more than happy to be a resource to you. I can't thank you enough for giving me the opportunity to talk. Networking is one of my favorite things. And again, just like with your purple crayon, networking is a very unique, special to you, your comfort zone, your style, your personal and professional circles, all of it is unique to you, and you can do it so that it works for you. Roberta and Dana, that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Jen. If you want to leave this up for just a second, just so if everyone can make sure to jot down that email if they'd like it. But we've already had a few questions come in, and again, as a reminder, I want to let you know we are here to answer your questions. So make sure to submit those using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And we'll get to as many of those as possible in the next 20 minutes or so. But to get us started, it was funny. I actually reached out to my network ahead of this, and I was like, you know what? We're meeting with this amazing career coach. Like, what do you want to know about networking? What are some of your questions? And one of my greatest contacts, she said, I'm sure she's going to talk about a lot about LinkedIn, and you mentioned what a great resource it is. But to summarize, what are your quick, top 3 tips for LinkedIn?
A comprehensive and current profile. Mm-hmm. Following companies and people that you're interested in, and then can advance the ball for you. And using it to properly connect, which includes that message, to follow up with people that you've met. It's so much, it's a great reason, instead of just sending that standard email, thank you for your time, it was great to meet you. Now you can do a LinkedIn connection, and then you can benefit from what's on that person's profile, the information and the context.
That's perfect. Awesome. Do you want to hit stop share so we can see you just a little better?
Sure.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. Okay. So next question. So we made the connection. We're now friends on LinkedIn. We can see their connections. We can see their job history, the companies that we have in common. How do you maintain that connection?
You want to look for commonalities, similarities, opportunities to invite people to things that you think they may be interested in, or if whether it be you share schools that you went to or industries or companies. The easiest, the lowest hanging fruit, things like holidays. Sometimes there's birthdays in the contact info. Small touch points. I use it, I will go back and hiring partners I've tried to get as clients since I started my business to this day have not responded to me. Hi, just checking in. Again, thanks so much for remaining in connection. Here's an article I found related to X, Y, and Z that I thought would be helpful to you. Or refreshing and saying you want to grab a coffee. But following their company's page, or having an inquiry about somebody on their staff or on a job post. Some of us have thousands of connections, right? So you can't do this. You have to be selective, but the ones that you're looking to get something out of, frankly, you're going to get a vibe from them, right? They're either going to not respond over time, and then you just need to kind of put that aside. The sales cycle is 18 months that you essentially have to court somebody. If they're not responding after a really long time, let that one go for a bit. But the other ones who come back, look, again, it's hard work, right? You need to look for the connections. You need to look for the reasons, even if it's a happy new year, hope 2022 is off to a good start for you. Or my alumni group is having a great presentation, but you got to get creative.
Yeah. Those are some really good tips. I like the low hanging fruit, the holidays, the birthdays, the articles. It's great.
Yeah. Pick a time of year.
That's perfect. There you go. So we didn't really mention like mentors, but do mentors play a part in networking, and maybe how do you find a mentor that you can keep your whole career?
Well, there's one easy way and one where you have to go a little bit extra effort. One is your school, right? I mean, everyone matches. That's part of the alumni matching, right? You can find mentors that way. And frankly, while you're in college, you really should look for mentors through your internship programs, professors who are unofficially your mentors, and keep them close and treat them well, and return the favors as often as you can. As you get into your professions, you always have to find people who you can confide in on things that may, the workings of the politics. So you want to find people who you can trust with what you deem are awkward questions, but you have to seek them out. And you can create some levels of formality where, hey, would you mind having lunch, or breakfast once a quarter? Look, so many employers and schools, including grad schools, have, even at my law school, we had a pairing where you could get a mentor for your first year of law school. Take advantage of them. Sometimes it's not great chemistry, and then ask for, to be reassigned because of whatever. But along the way, seek out people who have walked the path that you're hoping to walk, or in the path that you're in, who are more senior to you, and constantly get their advice and their feedback, and bring challenging questions to them. They play an enormous role, but again, they're in no better position than anybody to know your story and to sell it well in a variety of different forums. Huge resource.
That's terrific. Thank you. That brings them being a resource and selling your story. The selling your story part, we all heard about elevator pitches, like
yes.
Quick elevator pitch. Any tips for developing your elevator pitch or making a really strong one?
Well, the elevator part of it is what makes it handy, right? Because you can truly test yourself. You hop on an elevator, and if you've got, 6, 12, 20 floors to capture it, it truly does need to capture, where you've been, where you're going. write down the bullet points and practice them. Practice them with, your significant other or your siblings or your family, and act as if you've walked into the room. I know it sounds silly, but you want to role play it with people who care about you to start before you get, walk into a room and you start to sweat and you get all nervous. But it truly is about, we don't want to know where you were born and where you went to high school and the clubs hey, I'm a junior at TJU, whatever the case might be, in this particular program, really hoping to get into XYZ space, super quick. And you will continue to refine that as you go. When you're in your career, then you kind of learn to capture, and this can help on your LinkedIn profile. You learn to capture what you do, right? I'm a leadership, business development, and career coach for those who are in their roles and want to either improve who they are or transition into a new organization. You just want to leave them with something so that if they go to the next person and say, hey, I just met this great kid or this great, accountant or this great legal assistant, and they can talk enough about you to dangle that carrot to move it along, to keep that story going. It's a little bit like telephone, right? You want to plant the right buzzwords so that if the core message gets through. And there's a ton out there online about how building an elevator pitch and practicing it. And now that we have Zoom, you can videotape yourself. I have many of my clients tell their story over Zoom and send it to me. It is, uncomfortable and nobody likes listening to themselves, but it really does work, because you can't doubt yourself. You have to say it in a very convincing way that makes them know that you're comfortable in that story. That's, you're comfortable in your own skin.
It's really great. The elevator pitch. I mean, it comes back to networking, but also like during interview questions. So
yes,
the standard, tell me about yourself. Is that similar to an elevator pitch? Do you want to share about the same, who you are, where you're going?
It's funny. I have my youngest son is actually just recently had to go through this process, and I would listen in on his interviews and try to refine those for him as he went. And it was natural for him to be like, well, I grew up in Cleveland and I played sports. And, you want to kind of get to the present, right? I'm a recent grad of, or I'm a staff accountant at X. You want it to be the snapshot. You don't want it to be the minutia, because you'll start to see them glaze over. You want it to be 3 to 5 sentences of what captures what you do, how you do it, who you do it for, and what your vision is essentially, for your practice, for your profile. And again, there's a lot of resources out there, but writing things down, saying it out loud, all of those things. But you do not need to go back. You need to learn to capture, just like you will at the top of your resume at some point, what you bring to the table, why they should pay attention to you.
Practice makes perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like it. So moving back a little bit to LinkedIn. So there's all of these different tools that we can now put on our profiles, whether it's like media or our volunteer experience or adding attachments, things like that. What do recruiters actually look at? Do they look at it all? Do you have tips for what's the best profile?
Yeah, they do. They do look. I look every single day. Frankly, LinkedIn's, some of the resources have made it so that doing a search for a recruiter, they don't have to spend a lot of time or money. And as you're looking for your first job or your third or your 10th job, one of the things you want to do is you can do your own search on LinkedIn and see if you come up, right? So, fashion merchandising or architect or healthcare, or dental hygienist. You want to make sure that if you're in job search mode and you continue to apply for these job titles or these job profiles, that when a recruiter puts that in to the search box in LinkedIn, you come up in your geographical location. If you don't, then you don't have the right words. Recruiters aren't looking for activity. They're looking for the meat of your credentials, They're looking, depending on your level, are you participating in extracurricular? They do for higher level roles and more seasoned roles, people who may be sales professionals or people whose network is important. They do want to see that you have the 500 plus connections, right? Because if you're hiring a chief sales officer and that person has 130 connections, you're probably going to think, ugh. So spend the time and connect, right? But I would do a search on LinkedIn for your type of profile and see if you come up. You do not have to go into great lengths. It does not have to be lengthy. It needs to be current. It should link to your employers to the extent possible. It should provide their contact information if you want them to reach you over Gmail. And frankly, if you're unemployed and looking for work, that open to work is what recruiters will first look for, right? And it's nothing to be, you don't have to worry. It's not like taboo to have that. They're using that we are hiring just as much. But short, succinct, professional, no different. It's the paper version of you. You want it to leave the best impression possible. You want people to find you.
That's the search you want to come up in.
It is. Absolutely.
There you go. All right. So switching gears a little bit. So we actually have one audience member who was wondering about salary requirements. Like, you're in networking, do you bring this up? Like, how should it be addressed?
Not in networking, not in the first interview, not unless it's prompted. Some employers have gotten to the point now where there's such a large applicant pool that sometimes you will get that salary question in the first so that they can weed out the people who are too high, too low. Everyone has to make a living to pay their rent, right? To pay their mortgage. Everyone truly does have a threshold. And you can always try. My salary requirements are negotiable depending on the salary structure and the responsibilities of the position. You can try to get away with it, but less and less are allowing for it. Although I will say more and more states are turning to posting the salaries within the jobs. And I'm getting the sense that they may be forced into it at some point as a mandatory piece. But you're going to get the question at some point, right? It's coming. So whether it's at the application stage, the screening stage, you inevitably have to be prepared, even if it's at the offer stage, because if you want to make 100,000 and the position only offers 30, aren't you really going to, well, that was an extreme example, but aren't you going to want to know that much earlier than that 7 stages in, right? So do your homework, know your budget, know what your family needs, and have, if you need to make between 40 and 50,000 to just get by, that's your number. Because if the position pays 28,000, you probably can't take it, right? So I agree that you should always attempt to be as lighthearted and vague as you could possibly get away with to start. But inevitably, you've got to do that work on the side anyway. And you want to be aligned as early in the vetting process as possible, so you're not wasting your time or theirs.
Great. So leave it for the interviews, leave it for that process, maybe keep it from networking.
Yeah. And I would highly recommend you wait to be prompted, unless you're getting the sense that you're going to be way off base. If you get a vibe about it, then you maybe the second round or the third round can bring it up. But I would wait until that's presented to you by them. Let them open that door.
Okay. And, speaking about like the interview process or the job application process, how do you feel about applying for a job on LinkedIn, but also through the company website? Should they do both or just one or the other?
No, they can do both. What'll happen is the recruiter, to me, the company website's the no-brainer piece, right? It's going into the portal. It's direct access to the hiring manager. There's too much, with all due respect to LinkedIn and its fabulous platform, there's too much that could go wrong. And no recruiter is going to be like, oh my God, like this person is so, overdoing it. No, they're just going to say, okay, we already have this person in the system. So double up if need be. But if you've already applied on the site, on the company website, there's no reason to apply on LinkedIn. But if you've applied on LinkedIn and then you happen to remember, oh, I didn't check the company website, then you can do both.
Great. All right. Wonderful. So we talked a little bit about, networking with different generations and how that might look a little bit different.
Yep.
So a question came through. What suggestions do you have to connect with people who are no longer maybe answering their phone and only messages? Is it okay to text and network?
So it's how to connect with those people. Those people.
Do you send a text? How does that look like?
Well, candidly, and although it goes against my generation, I do. If I'm looking to connect with a candidate that I'm cold calling, or if you have access to their cell phone, I'm assuming you got that through an appropriate course. I would let significant time go by before you go the text route, but texting has become, particularly the comment about networking with the different generations, that is definitely a generation. I would say, I hate to put ages on it, but there is a group, 20s and 30s, that's not going to think twice about getting a text. And you can always say, hate to bother you over text, tried to reach you otherwise, like that. To me, folks, in my age bracket, the fourth, fifth, and sixth box on the application, we may be like, really? But I probably wouldn't have ignored them in the first place. But at some point you need to learn to give up on those people unless you absolutely have to reach them. But if you preface it with hey, I've tried to reach you otherwise, so sorry to bother you this way. That's how I personally would be doing it.
That totally makes sense. Yes. Maybe last case scenario, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So another tool somebody brought up, which I think is really great. So professional affiliation or industry specific organizations. What do you think about those? Are they still popular? Are they still good resources? How do you find them? What does that look like?
I don't know if they're still popular, but they should be. There's, again, maybe generationally, although there's so many groups that have the young professional version of X, Y, and Z, city groups and things like that. Those still, to me, are go to the heart of networking. You have similarly situated, similarly skilled or interest people, right, who gather in some form, whether it be over what we used to call listservs. I don't even know if those exist anymore. But, there are even, the National Association of Law Placement is I've been a member of it for 25 years. It's still one of my primary go-tos for, the trials and tribulations of my work, to connect with people for resources for people. I'm a huge fan. I did some recruiting in the auto industry. There's there's an industry, a trade organization for every industry. So to me, they're underutilized, particularly as the younger generations. And I am a full believer. And frankly, there's often job boards now on many of those, or if you're connecting with people on them, they will help each other. Terrific resource and not utilized enough, in my opinion. They were a big deal. That's all we had, pre-LinkedIn. We had those professional networking where we had to count on those trade groups, no matter what your industry. So I'm hugely in favor. And often, they'll have one big conference a year or regional things that make it more doable, make it, more likely you'll be able to participate in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, we're alumni relations and we have one, and it's so helpful because you can look and see what others are doing. You can network, you can establish these connections. So that's great. Great to hear.
Yeah. And frankly, they give you an opportunity as you get more seasoned in your career. You can be a speaker, you can provide content, you can be very visible, and likely more easily with those types of groups.
For sure. Well, we actually got to all of our questions that were
great
during the program. So yes, high five on that. Again, if you have any other questions for Jen, she has shared her email. We'll follow up tomorrow with a recording for this webinar, and then also her email address in that too, if you want to reach out for any additional questions. But Jen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
thank you to all of you for signing on. Like she said, this is the first step, and it really means a lot that you came on and participated in this. It's really great start. I do want to share, we have some really great programs coming up that you can practice your networking at. So let me put those up on the screen. So again, just a quick plug, our Jefferson Alumni Network. It's separate from our LinkedIn group. So make sure you join our LinkedIn group, but you can scan the QR code on the screen and create your profile today, or go to alumninetwork.jefferson.edu and start looking to see who's on there and who might be a good connection for you to make. Our next online talk is going to be in February. It's going to be Let's Talk About Stress. We all have that in our lives, and this will give you some tips and tricks for how to reduce that. So that'll be helpful. And then if you are in the Florida area, we have a ton of different events coming to you in the winter months. We're trying to get out of this cold. So we will see you down in Florida at some really fun events. You'll get to meet our chancellor for the East Falls campus. So check those out. And then here in the Philadelphia metropolitan area, we have a few things in the beginning of spring, late March. And it's, like I said, a really great way to meet other Jefferson alumni from all different schools and colleges. So we hope that you'll go to our website, jefferson.edu/alumni events, and you can learn more information about all of these things, along with our upcoming programs and activities. So again, thank you so much for joining us. I really can't wait to meet you all in person or at another webinar soon. But Jen, thanks so much for your tips. I'm going to put these in practice. I was taking
Great.
night.
Thank you for having me.
Alrighty, no problem. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you soon.